the public clouds charge you 50% profit. They add 50% profit, that's their margin, their markup, and you end up paying for it. So what you do here, you eliminate that extra 50%. Hi everybody, I would like to start by presenting myself. My name is Michael Bloom. I'm from a company called Server Factory. Based in England, we sell servers, supercomputers, GPUs, storage systems, etc. all over the world. We are resellers of Supermicro and various other manufacturers of servers such as Gigabyte, Asus, and ASRock, MSI, etc. So what I'd like to talk to you about today is bare metal versus cloud. So first I'd like to ask anyone sitting in the crowd here to raise your hand if you are in the cloud. So who's in the cloud? Raise your hand. Okay. And now if you are not in the cloud, if you have your own setup, and you're obviously saving a lot of money, then who has their own setup, which is not the cloud? Excellent. So there's a lot of money being wasted here, and I'm going to explain to you exactly why. So let's take the, I brought this slide. So imagine the car industry where you rent a car, you hire a car. So you can hire a car for one day, 24 hours, and pay $50 for the whole 24 hours. Or you could go for these companies that rent you by the hour. So you can rent a car and pay only $6 an hour, $6 compared to $50. So if you're using the car per hour and you're using it for 2 hours, then it's still cheaper than $50 a day because it's 12. And if you're using it for 3 hours, you'll pay 18, which is still cheaper than 50. However, as soon as you get to 9 hours, now you'll be paying 6 times 9, which is 54. And if you're going to use the per hour car for the whole 24 hours, you're looking at $144 compared to $50, which you would pay if you had your daily use. Right, so now coming back to the cloud versus bare metal. So here we have an interesting illustration. Here we have the cloud, and here we have a private cloud, so to speak. So the cloud here is like the per hour rental of the car, and this is the per day, 24 hours. Now here you can see a direct correlation between the price and the usage of the server. So you guys who are using the cloud, the more you use, the more you pay. Now, here, on the other hand, you're looking at a price that stays pretty much the same throughout. No matter how much you're using, you're still paying the same amount. On here, if either of you is now here using this much performance of the server, it's already worth your while to switch to your own private cloud and not pay all these extortionate amounts that public clouds charge. And as you can see here, the cost per compute unit is $12, and here the cost is $4.36, which is a third. Now, you can ask me, well, Michael, why is this so much more expensive than that? So the answer is simple. The public clouds charge you 50% profit. They add 50% profit, that's their margin, their markup, and you end up paying for it. So what you do here, you eliminate that extra 50%, plus here they will charge you for extras, like if you need to pay for bandwidth, they're going to charge you way more than you would pay for bandwidth, which is peanuts, if you bought it yourself. Again, you could say, okay, that's all well and good, but how are we going to actually do this? We don't know how to set up our own cloud. We don't know how to buy a server and configure it and to have a person who's a system administrator that's actually running everything for us. So we take that issue from you, just like the cloud tells you, well, don't worry about it, we're going to deal with all this. We, as a company that sets up private clouds, deploys them, runs them, manages them for you, we're basically doing exactly what any public cloud would do, only they're charging you 50%, and we are happy to charge 10%, 15%, and you're still going to make an unbelievable saving on your expenses. Now, apart from the fact that you're paying an arm and a leg for the capacity of the servers that are being used for your usage, there's also a technical advantage of having your own setup, which is shown here. Basically, this is your own server. So if you have your own server, you have the hardware, on the hardware, you have the operating system, and then you have your applications, the applications that you're using. Here, on the other hand, on the cloud, you have the hardware, then you have a virtualization layer that sits on the hardware, which basically splits the hardware into many, many small mini servers, virtual machines, and it's very crowded. They're all using up the same resources, and that affects your applications by 5 to 10%. So again, I don't know exactly what applications you have, but if you need something that's very robust and has to be very powerful and work very fast and be predictable in terms of the performance, you're much better off with having your own private cloud than having a public cloud. Now we could go into more details here for the technical people in the house. So here we have again, coming back to the bare metal solution, which is your own private cloud. You have full control and on the dedicated resources. So your CPU, you're not sharing the cores on your CPU with anybody else. It's all your CPU. Hard disks, you could control the read and write speed to the hard disks. You could update your NVMe. You could update the BIOS. You could tweak your network card to work in a much better, higher performance in terms of your requirements of your applications. Whereas here in the cloud, as we saw 2 days ago, the cloud went down. So I don't know how good that is, but you're sharing your CPU and your disk and your network card with many, many other neighbors. Now, these neighbors could be using a lot of the CPU power and the disk, and that will affect the stability of your application. And it could even result in what happened 2 days ago, where the whole bloody cloud went down. So that's in terms of these. Now I'm going to show you a bit of our presentation. We can look at some. Let's just look at the examples, because I only have 3 minutes. So example, a 3D rendering studio could consolidate multiple VMs into a single high-core bare metal node and save $2,000 or pounds per month in rendering costs. Again, you're using a lot of power. The more you use, the more they charge you. Here, you don't have to pay that extra, so you're basically saving $2,000 every month. Then a research university could deploy custom Linux kernel, and that's the key word, custom Linux kernel, because on the bare metal you can have your own custom kernel, which is smaller and set up to actually optimize your application. So bare metal servers for molecular simulations, and they saw a reduction of 30% or 30% faster results versus the cloud. So it's actually superior technically. Then an AI startup can move training workloads from AWS P4D to in-house bare metal and reduce GPU training costs by nearly 60% with identical performance. The identical performance means that the bare metal configuration is exactly like the cloud one, and with having the same configuration, it's still 60% cheaper for reasons I mentioned earlier. And also taking GPU, for example, the GPU itself could be configured to only work on mathematical calculations. So example, if you are like an AI company and you need all this mathematical power, the GPU will put 100% of its ability, resources, power into that, and not into video, for example. But if we think about this, they can't do that, because if this client is using video applications and this client is using AI, they can't change the configuration of the GPU because it's going to affect both of them, whereas you can. And that's why you could save 60% on top of that. And then we have another example. Media company hosting 4K streams could switch from cloud VMs to dedicated servers, cutting bandwidth costs by 35%, eliminating peak hour buffering. Again, public clouds will charge you way more for bandwidth that you could buy yourselves on the open market for peanuts. Everybody knows that data transfer is one of the cheapest things around. What else do we have? Online game publisher hosting its own bare metal infrastructure could save $120,000 annually compared to managed cloud hosting fees. A telecom provider can build bare metal edge network for video calls and reducing operational costs by 25% versus leased cloud instances. So basically, you can here, for example, you can have a combination. You can have a hybrid. So for example, yeah, you run 95% of everything on your private cloud, but if you have a short burst of requirements of extra workload for, let's say, half an hour, we could shift that out to the cloud, pay just for that half an hour, and then you carry on your private setup. Thank you very much. Come see us at booth G24, Server Factory, and we could talk to you about how to reduce those extortionate prices that you're paying now for your cloud setup. Thank you very much.